It's Friday, the 7th of November 2025. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories, 5 minutes. Story number 1's a big one. The country's government's increased spending on public service wages to nearly $250 billion last financial year. That's up 16% over 2 years, and the Commonwealth workforce is growing fastest.
So over the past couple of years, all levels of government have boosted their wages bill in part due to wage rises, but also due to hiring more people. State governments are the biggest employer, making up 77% of public sector employment. Commonwealth Bank's 15%, local governments 8%. But the Commonwealth government's wages bill has grown faster. It paid $41 billion last financial year, 20% more than 2 years ago. It now employs 386,000 people, up from 350,000 a couple of years ago. In contrast, average weekly earnings rose about 3% last year, 4% the year before.
The numbers, Sean, are huge, particularly among the 6 states and the 2 territories. Nearly 2 million people are employed by the states.
Yes, so most of the jobs are in public administration and safety, think policing, education and training, teachers, healthcare and assistants, nurses, carers, etc. The surge in spending comes as economists and analysts have criticised the federal government for spending too much. Yesterday, the opposition pushed the point, asking whether government spending is driving inflation. Treasurer Jim Chalmers said no, saying the Reserve Bank was clear in the course of coming to its decision earlier in the week to not cut rates, that government spending had nothing to do with it. I'm not sure that the Reserve Bank said that at all. And of course, government spending does add to inflation, as does all spending. The point is whether or not there is too much public spending. Chalmers argues that during the last two quarters, public demand made no contribution to growth. Mind you, that's different to not adding to inflationary pressure.
On to story number 2 now. National Australia Bank has reported a drop in net profit for the full year to the end of September, though boss Andrew Irvine says there's good momentum in the country's second largest lender.
The bank reported an annual cash profit of $7.1 billion, slightly below expectations, and an unchanged final dividend of 85 cents a share. Mind you, its share price fell 3.4% on the day. Investors not real happy. Irvine said the bank was making good progress in key target areas, business banking, driving deposit growth and strengthening home lending via its own workforce. NAB is the country's largest business lender, 22% of the market, but facing stiff competition from Commonwealth and Westpac in particular. Its profit margins are being squeezed somewhat. Expenses were higher, in part because of a $130 million cost after the bank was found to be underpaying employees. Irvine nominated housing as Australia's biggest societal and policy challenge.
Story number 3, Microsoft will refund millions of dollars to Australian customers after the consumer watchdog alleged that it duped 2.7 million Aussies into paying more for expensive software plans that included the CoPilot chatbot, even if they didn't want it.
Microsoft wrote to customers yesterday apologising to those affected. The tech giant said it should have been more transparent about the existence of a cheaper plan for those who do not think its artificial intelligence features were worth paying for. Now, customers can request a refund before the end of this year. Last week, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission alleged that Microsoft concealed the option to switch to a less expensive subscription, known as a classic plan, which didn't include CoPilot. The case highlights the potential challenge for Microsoft and other big tech companies upgrading customers into paying more money for services. That is how they're going to make their money back, so long as customers want to pay for it.
Story number 4, Sean. It's been a rough week for US President Donald Trump. Midweek, the voters of 4 different states voted in Democrat candidates for office, just as the president's approval rating fell below 40%. Then you add in the Supreme Court appearing skeptical of Trump's tariffs. It's all just building, isn't it?
Yeah, so there was an election of a Democrat as a mayor of New York. We had Democrats winning governor races in Virginia and New Jersey, a Democratic majority in the state Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, a Democratic vote in California as well. We then had oral arguments were heard in the country's Supreme Court on tariffs, a bit like reading the tea leaves this one, but analysts said justices appeared sceptical of the legal basis for the tariffs. Then the US was forced to cut flights by 10% at 40 airports because of the government shutdown, which earlier in the week resulted in the ending of food stamps for many families. It is now the longest shutdown in history, and polls from middle-of-the-road organisations like NBC suggest the Republicans are shouldering most of the blame. Had Russian President Vladimir Putin talking about starting nuclear tests to match Donald Trump. Not a great week for the president.
No, not a great one. Last story number 5. This is a heck of a story, Sean. Lost songs of legendary rock singer Jim Morrison that turned up in a house in remote Tasmania, of all places, have been returned to his family in the US.
Labelled unreleased or never released, the reel-to-reel recordings were found in the Huon Valley home of US music producer the late John Haney. According to the Australian, Haney, a producer, mixing engineer and sound designer who worked with the Doors and its frontman, died in his adopted island home a couple of years ago. Among a treasure trove of recording equipment found were the reel-to-reel recordings, which Haney's labelling suggests include at least 6 unreleased Morrison tracks. Their tracks were returned, and the Morrison family will make a donation to various charities at Haney's that appear in Haney's will. At least one tape was recorded after Morrison left the Doors. It was a session on his 27th birthday, December 8, 1970. Basically, the session turned into a drunken party. The tapes kept running. Morrison died in July 1971.
All right, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It is Friday, the 7th of November, 2025. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.